The espresso machine arrived on a Tuesday, and I cried a little when they uncrated it. Not in front of the delivery guys. I waited until they left, until the door swung shut and the bell I'd hung above it gave its small, clean ring, and then I stood in the middle of my cafe, a phrase I had been practicing in my head for 3 years like a word in a language I was still learning to trust, and I let myself feel it. The machine was a slayer. Single group, hand-built in Seattle, the kind of equipment that signals to anyone who knows anything that the person behind the counter is serious. I had saved for it longer than I'd saved for anything. It stood on the reclaimed oak counter like an argument I had finally won. Compass Coffee had taken me 4 years to build toward and 11 months to actually build. The space was a former dry cleaner's on Alderton Street, narrow and deep. With original brick on the north wall and pressed-in ceilings, I had spent 6 weekends restoring myself with a wire brush and a great deal of patience. I had done the chalkboard menu by hand. I had sourced the chairs from an estate sale in Connecticut, mismatched on purpose, the kind of intentional imperfection that takes more work to achieve than uniformity. My business partner, Ronnie, who had believed in this before I fully believed in it myself, had helped me wire the pendant lights. My friend Aria had painted the mural on the south wall, botanicals, loose and generous, in the colors of old library books. It was exactly what I had wanted it to be. It was, by any reasonable measure, something to be proud of. My family's assessment differed. My mother, Evelyn, had come for the soft opening and spent 40 minutes telling me the chairs didn't match. My father, Michael, had asked twice whether I had considered a franchise instead. And Olivia, my older sister, the successful one, the one whose opinion arrived in every room before she did, had not come at all. She had sent a text that said congrats on the little coffee shop, with 2 exclamation points that managed, through sheer punctuation, to convey everything she thought of it. I had learned, over 34 years, to metabolize Olivia's condescension the way you metabolize background noise. Present, noted, filed away, moved past. She was 4 years older than me and had built a boutique interior styling business that our parents discussed at dinner with the reverence they reserved for things they understood. She was loud in the way that rooms reorganized themselves around. She was the kind of successful that required an audience. I was the kind that preferred to work in silence, which my family had always interpreted as a character flaw rather than a methodology. I had stopped trying to correct this interpretation approximately 3 years ago, which coincided, not accidentally, with the period in which I had begun quietly doing things they didn't know about. The video went up on a Thursday evening, 6 days after the official opening. I was doing inventory in the back when Grace, my morning barista, appeared in the doorway with her phone and an expression I had not seen on her face before. Grace was 23 and unflappable by nature. She had handled a small kitchen fire during the soft opening with the equanimity of a person diffusing a minor inconvenience, and the expression she was wearing now was not equanimity. "Sophie," she said, "you need to see this." It was 47 seconds long. Olivia had come in that afternoon with 2 friends I vaguely recognized from her Instagram, women in expensive casual wear who held their phones at the angle of people accustomed to filming themselves in public. The video opened with Olivia at the counter, her back partially to the camera, and then she turned and the caption read, "Rating my little sister's Café, so you don't have to." The heart hands around the word café, the tone of a person doing a favor for her audience. She walked the length of the room commenting on the chairs, mismatched, and not in a cute way, the mural, "I've seen better on a middle school wall," and the menu, which she read aloud with the cadence of someone translating a foreign language badly. She picked up a cup from the counter and held it to the camera. She said, "This is why no one takes you seriously." Then she set it down with enough deliberateness that it tipped, and the remaining coffee spread across the reclaimed oak in a dark, slow bloom. She did not apologize to Grace. She did not look back. She walked out and someone off camera laughed and the video ended. It had 14,000 views by the time Grace showed it to me. By Friday morning, it had 40. By Friday evening, the review section of our Google listing had acquired 11 new entries, most of them from accounts created that day, all of them 1 star. I read every one. Then I put my phone face down on the desk in the back office and sat with my hands flat on the surface for a long time. My mother called Saturday morning. I told her what had happened. I told her about the video, the reviews, the bookings that had been canceled 5 in 2 days, people who had seen the clip shared in a local Facebook group under the heading "Anyone else been to this place?" Seems sketchy. I told her I was looking at a temporary closure while I managed the reputational damage, which was a business-like way of saying that I could not afford to operate at a loss and was not yet sure what came next. My mother listened. When I finished, she said, "Olivia was just joking around, Sophie. She does this with everything. It's content." She told 14,000 people my business wasn't worth taking seriously. She has a big following. Any attention is good attention. The reviews, Mom. You can't know those were from her. I said nothing. You're always so sensitive about Olivia, she said. She's proud of you in her own way. She just expresses it differently. I thought about the spilled coffee, the deliberateness of it, the pause before she set the cup down, the slight adjustment of her wrist that was not clumsiness. I have to go, I said. My father called that evening. He said, "At least she's getting people talking about the place." He said it with the genuine conviction of a man who believed he was being helpful, which in some ways made it worse than if he hadn't called at all. I talked to Ronnie for 2 hours that night, sitting on the floor of the closed cafe with the lights low and 2 cups of tea going cold beside us. Ronnie had known me since college and had put money into Compass not as charity but as investment, because Ronnie understood spreadsheets and had read my business plan with the attention it deserved and had said, when she finished, "This works. Let's do it." She sat with me now and did not tell me it would be fine. She asked me what I needed and listened to the answer, which is a different thing entirely. What I needed, I told her, was 3 weeks. She asked what would happen in 3 weeks. I told her. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You've been sitting on this the whole time." "I was waiting to see if I needed it," I said. "Do you need it?" I looked at the Slayer on the counter. The mural. The mismatched chairs that I had chosen on purpose because I had wanted the room to feel like somewhere people had been living for years, not a set assembled for photographs. "Yes," I said. "I need to explain Gavin, because Gavin is part of how this became possible, and because his role has been misunderstood, including by my own family, who have always had a talent for misunderstanding anything that doesn't announce itself loudly. Gavin was my mentor before he was my backer. I had met him 8 years ago when I was 26 and working as an operations manager for a mid-size restaurant group in the city, a job my family considered a placeholder, and I considered an education. Gavin had built and sold 3 hospitality businesses by the time he was 50 and had moved into commercial real estate with the same methodical attention he had applied to everything else. He was not glamorous. He drove a 10-year-old Volvo and wore the same 3 sweaters in rotation and had an office above a hardware store that smelled of sawdust and old paper. And he was one of the most financially sophisticated people I had ever met. He had seen something in me that I was still learning to see in myself. We had talked every few months for years, about business, about property, about the way money moves through a neighborhood and what it means when a commercial block shifts ownership. When I told him about Alderton Street, about the dry cleaners and the tin ceilings and the vision I had for the space, he had not told me it was impractical. He had asked me 6 specific questions about the property and the surrounding block, listened to my answers, and said, "How much of this do you want to own?" The answer, it turned out, was more than just the cafe. The building that housed Compass occupied a corner lot that was part of a larger commercial parcel, 4 storefronts in total, under a single property entity that had been held by an aging LLC for 11 years, and had been, when Gavin identified it, significantly undervalued. We had acquired it quietly, through a holding company, 14 months before I signed the cafe lease. The acquisition was a matter of public record, but public records require someone to look, and no one in my family had ever thought to look into the business affairs of the impractical one. The second storefront in the parcel was currently occupied by a boutique interior styling business. Olivia had signed her lease 3 years ago through a property management company. The management company had changed hands twice since then. The current owner of the entity that held her lease was a holding company called Alderton Street Partners, LLC. I was the managing member of Alderton Street Partners, LLC. Olivia's lease was up for renewal in 6 weeks. The renewal had to be negotiated directly with the property owner. I had not done anything with this information. I had not needed to until now. I closed Compass for 12 days. I used the time well. I had the oak counter refinished, a deeper tone, richer, better than before. I added 2 new menu items that Ronnie and I had been developing for the spring. I hired a second barista, a young man named Patrick who had competition experience and moved behind a bar with the economy of someone who had practiced the choreography until it was instinct. I reached out to a food writer I'd met at a hospitality event the previous year, not to ask for coverage, but to invite her in, which is a different thing. She came on day 8 and stayed for 2 hours. Arya updated the mural, not because anything was wrong with it, but because she wanted to, and because there was a section near the door she had always felt was unfinished. She added a trailing branch of something I couldn't name, but that looked like it had always been there. The piece came out 4 days before the reopening. The food writer had, it turned out, a column in a regional publication with considerable reach, and a tone that managed to be enthusiastic without being promotional. She wrote about the tin ceilings and the Slayer and the botanical mural and the care that had gone into the mismatched chairs. She mentioned, briefly and without drama, that the cafe had faced a difficult opening week, but had used the time to refine rather than retreat. The reopening reservations filled in 6 hours. The morning of the grand reopening, I arrived at 6 and stood in the room alone for 10 minutes before Grace and Patrick came in. The room was ready. The coffee was ready. The chairs were exactly as I had placed them, each one imperfect, each one chosen. I thought about what Olivia had said. This is why no one takes you seriously. I thought about my mother's voice on the phone. You're always so sensitive. I thought about my father and his franchise question, and his well-meaning uselessness. I let myself feel all of it, and then I went behind the counter and began making coffee, because the doors opened in 40 minutes and I had work to do. By noon, every table was full. Grace moved through the room with the fluid efficiency of someone who has found the work that fits them. Patrick pulled shots with the focused attention of a craftsman. Ronnie arrived at 1 and sat at the corner table with her laptop, not working, just present, and I caught her eye across the room and she raised her cup at me. The afternoon light came through the front windows in the way it does in October in this part of the country, low and specific and gold, and it fell across the oak counter and the mural and the mismatched chairs, and the room looked exactly like what it was, a place built by someone who knew what they were doing. Olivia walked in at 3:15. I knew her immediately, though she had dressed down in a way I recognized as intentional, the look of someone who has prepared for a business errand they expect to resolve quickly. She had her bag over one shoulder and her phone in her hand, and the expression she wore in rooms she had already assessed and found manageable. She did not see me at first. She approached the counter and spoke to Grace, and I watched Grace listen and then turn slightly and gesture toward the back, and then Olivia turned and saw me, and the expression on her face went through several things in quick succession that she did not have time to manage. I was standing at the counter in my apron. There was coffee on my hands. I looked exactly like what I was, the owner of this business, in the middle of a very good day. "Sophie," she said. "Olivia," I kept my voice level, it was not difficult. "Do you want something to drink?" She glanced around the room, the full tables. The quiet hum of a place operating at capacity, the food writer's piece printed and framed on the wall near the door, which Grace had done as a surprise and which I had not objected to. I watched Olivia's eyes move across it. I watched her look at the Slayer, the mural, the mismatched chairs, all of it. I got a letter," she said, "about my lease, a renewal notice. It said I needed to contact the property owner directly." She said it with the slight confusion of someone reading from a script they hadn't expected. "The management company gave me this address. I thought it was an error." "It's not an error," I said. A pause. Something shifted behind her eyes. The owner's name on the letter. Is me, I said. Alderton Street Partners. I'm the managing member. The room continued around us, Grace taking an order, Patrick at the machine, conversation at the tables, the bell above the door ringing as someone came in. All of it ordinary, all of it proceeding. Olivia looked at me for a long moment. I could see her processing it, the building, the lease, the renewal, the letter, the address that had led her here. The complete architecture of a situation she had not known she was standing inside. You own the building, she said. Not a question. More like someone reading a document aloud to confirm they have understood it correctly. I own the block, I said. She said nothing. I untied my apron and set it on the counter. I can have someone send you the formal renewal terms by end of week. The lease rate reflects current market value for the street, which has appreciated since you signed. You'll want to have someone look it over. I paused. I'd recommend not waiting. I said it without heat, without satisfaction in my voice, without anything she could point to as cruelty. I said it the way I said everything that mattered, clearly, completely, and without performance. Olivia opened her mouth, closed it. She looked at the room one more time, the full tables, the framed review, the afternoon light doing its particular October thing across the oak, and something in her face went very still. She left without ordering anything. My mother called that evening. Olivia had called her first, which I had expected, and the conversation had apparently not gone the way Olivia had intended, because my mother's voice on the phone carried the particular quality of a person who has received information that has required her to revise something she believed was settled. Sophie, she said, you own their building. I own the block, I said, have for over a year. A long pause. You never told us. You never asked what I was doing, I said, not unkindly, accurately. Another pause, longer. The cafe looks beautiful, she said, finally. I saw the article. Thank you, I said. She started to say something about Olivia, about the video, about the word overreacting that she had used on the phone 3 weeks ago, and that I suspected she was now reviewing with some discomfort. I let her get partway into it before I said, gently, Mom, I have to close up. It was a long day. It had been a very good, very long day. I stayed after Grace and Patrick left and sat at the corner table, Ronnie's table, by habit now, with a small glass of wine I'd brought from home and the quiet that a room holds after it has been full of people. The chairs were slightly displaced from their afternoon positions, the particular disorder of a space that has been used well. I had built this from nothing, from a wire brush and a salvage sale, and a vision that my family had declined to take seriously, and a mentor who had asked the right question at the right time, and a business partner who read spreadsheets with the attention they deserved. I had built it quietly, without announcement, without asking anyone's permission. Olivia had walked into this room today expecting to conduct a transaction. She had not known, until she was standing in the middle of it, that every wall around her was something I owned. She thought she had destroyed my cafe. She had walked into the thing I built from the ground up, and she hadn't even recognized it until I told her whose name was on the door. I finished my wine. I turned the lights off one by one. Outside, Alderton Street was doing its quiet evening things, a couple walking, a delivery, the particular stillness of a block after the business day has ended. My block. Mine by effort and planning and the patient, unglamorous accumulation of years of work that no one had thought to notice until it was too late to dismiss. I locked up. I walked to my car. The night was clear and cold and entirely ordinary, and I was exactly where I intended to be.